In this Webflow tutorial, I'll teach you how to create this unique custom CMS map where you can put your mouse over a certain room. And once you click into it, it opens up a pop-up explaining that specific room. And this is all done via the CMS. So of course, you can add whatever content you want. In this specific case, there's a multi-image on the left-hand side, followed by some rich text on the right-hand side and some stats right here. And this is just a simple pop-up. What's cool about this is we can position these CMS map items where we want on that specific floor plan, which is just an image. And because it's built natively using the Webflow CMS, we can go ahead and reference these specific rooms, for example, in a slider format using Swiper.js. And we can go ahead and perhaps highlight one of the best rooms. We can go ahead and hit the button and it still opens up that pop-up. So this is actually quite easier than you think. In fact, everything's pretty easy once you know how. That's why I want to make this tutorial. This is how it's done. There's an image in the background. Then we go ahead and just add div blocks, which is position absolute. That's how we get that specific positioning. And we can obviously change the width and the height of these specific div blocks. Then we'll add a custom script. When you hit that div block, it opens up that CMS pop-up. So we'll go ahead and reference that. Again, let's go ahead and dive into Webflow. Okay, guys, I'm in my Webflow project right now. The first thing to do is just add a div block where you want that map to be in. We'll go ahead and give this class of map item. Then we can go ahead and drag in floor plan. In my case, I just have this one right here. Obviously, you can cut out the white background so it's transparent, and you can put an invert filter where it makes it white, like I showed in the example website. But this is going to have to do. Go ahead and give this a class of map image. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure that the width is set to 100%. And in this specific case, I want to make sure that I hit more size option and I just give it a ratio. In my case, it makes the most sense if I put square, and that's it. Once that's done, we can go ahead and select map underscore item and make sure that the position is set to relative. The reason why is we want to go ahead and overlay these segments of room using a div block. Okay, so because we have the map item set to relative, we can go ahead and add a div block. We'll go ahead and give this a class of map point. And this is going to be the div block that is going to be laid over the specific floor plan. So in this case, we have the bathroom, the kitchen, the living room, and the bedroom. I kept it super simple for this example. But what we can do now is change the position of this map point from static to absolute. And now it's going to be referencing the map item, which we set to relative right here. So we go ahead and pin this to the top left. And you'll notice you can't really see it because we don't have a width or a height. So in this specific width, let's go ahead and use a unit called EMs, or ephemeral unit. If we hit this drop down, we're looking at this one right here, EMs. Technically, we should be using viewport width, and viewport width is a fantastic responsive unit. For example, if I put 50 VW, you'll notice that it will actually scale if I move the responsiveness down. However, if we move on to mobile, it might ruin the ratio. That's why we're using EMs. EMs will listen to its parents. We'll get to an explanation once we go into mobile responsiveness. Just keep that in mind. So instead of using VW, we're going to go ahead and just put 14 EMs, and we'll change the height to also be 14 EMs just so we can see that div block. Now I can see that div block. I'm going to go ahead and change the background color to, let's just say, a red so we can see it even more. And I'm going to go ahead and just reduce the opacity to, let's say, 50%. And I'm going to go ahead and add a text inside of this div block. And I'm going to go ahead and just rename it to be bathroom. And I want to just go ahead and just select that text and give it a class of room name. And I want to go ahead and just change the color. Let's just say I'm going to change it to be this dark red, which I cannot see. So I'll just change it to be this black or whatever. Doesn't matter what color. So go ahead and change the font size to be 3 rems so you can really see it. Obviously, maybe too big. So I'll change it to 1.5. And I'm going to go ahead and just center that text by putting flex to be the parent in the middle. And you'll notice that's the name. So with the map point selected, let's go ahead and just fix this up. So I'm going to go ahead and just change the width and the height to match this specific box. But before I do that, I'm going to scroll down and change the positioning, which we've already anchored to the top left right here. We'll go ahead and change the position right here using EMs as well. So again, we'll put 4 EMs, and maybe at the top we'll put 2 EMs. And now we can just go ahead and just play around with it by just dragging the slider. Usually I like to align it to the top left. And once that's done, we can go ahead and change the width and the height. So let's just say, for example, 18 or 20. Or 24. And again, this is when you have to play around with it. You can be precise by using like 22.5, for example. The height, I'm going to change it to, let's say, 32. And you can see that's pretty close already, like, believe it or not. Maybe you want to make it a bit taller. We'll put 32.5. So obviously you can sit there and fine tune whatever, number you want. Once that's done, I'm going to go and give it a combo class of bathroom. So this only affects the bathroom. Now I'm going to go ahead and copy this div and paste it. You'll notice it's stacked on top of each other, which is very normal. But in this case, I'm going to go and duplicate this specific class and give it the name of the next CMS, floor plan, item, etc. So I'll call this one kitchen. And because we've already set that position to absolute, we don't have to do all that stuff again. You know what I mean? So all we need to do really is just change the positioning. So again, I like to line it to the top left. So in this case, it's pretty easy. I'll just slide it across, like maybe like right here or something. And then here, it's already, appropriate height because this is a very simple example. So I'll just change the width to be appropriate. Like let's say 40, maybe 42 or whatever, 41. And that looks pretty good, right? The next thing is I'll just duplicate it one more time. And I'll just go ahead and duplicate the class and I'll give it a name of bedroom. Now what I can do is just move this specific number once again. So I can go ahead and just move this to the left and then I can just move it down like so. Let's say right here. And this is a bit too tall. So we'll go ahead and just cut it down to, let's say, 30. And that's a bit too short now. So maybe 31.5, 31.7. So we can use these point numbers, which is very, very precise. But I'm just going to say that's pretty good. We'll change the width to, let's say, 35 or something like that. That looks okay. We'll go ahead and copy and paste this one more time, duplicate the combo class and give it a class name of, let's say, living room. And we'll go ahead and just slide this across and align it to the top left. And we can go ahead and just change the width to, let's just say, 30 and maybe 29.5, right? That looks pretty good. Obviously, we have some small overlaps right here, which obviously you can go in and fine tune those numbers. But I'm going to say this is pretty good. Just going to go ahead and just rename everything. Let's just say this one is kitchen. This one is bedroom. And this one is, TV or living room, whatever. But what I can also do, because we have unique combo classes, is to just change the color. So maybe this one, I'll change it to be like green. This one, I'll change it to be, let's say, a purple. And this one, I'll change it to be, let's say, a yellow, right? That looks pretty cool. You can imagine if you have more of these like layouts in the floor plan, you can add custom map points and put it exactly where you want. Now, where the mobile responsiveness comes into effect is when we used EMs right here as the width for the size of the div block, but also the positioning right here. We can go ahead and select our parent, which is map item. And you can see by default, it's set to pixel width, because we didn't change it. But I'm going to go and change this to a viewport width. So I'll put 1 VW. You'll notice that it actually scales with the size that we put. So if I put 3 VW, you notice it makes it really big. If I put 5, it makes it even bigger. So the number that we put in EMs will reference this specific number, which is using a responsive VW. That's why I use it this way. So in this case, I'll just put this as, let's say, 1.2. Maybe it's still a bit too big, so 1.1, maybe just 1.05. And then obviously we can readjust. But that's the main premise. That's the main premise. And perhaps I should have changed this to VW first. So my bad. I'll recommend changing the size to 1 VW and then go into the map points and then, fix it. So in this case, I'll just move this slightly to the left. And this is looking okay for me, right? And if we go ahead and just change the responsiveness, you'll notice it's not really responsive. So you'll notice if I move this down, we can also make that map item responsive. So we'll go ahead and select that map item and change the width to be something, responsive, like 70 VW, right? And this is pretty much perfect. And again, this is just giving you ideas of how you can do that CMS map item, but this is just one way that I did it. If we go ahead and move it to tablet right here, you'll notice everything is very responsive because we're using VW. That's all that you really need to know. You may notice in this specific tablet view right here, we can change that width from 70 to, let's say, 100, or maybe let's say 80, or maybe let's say 85. And you'll notice that it doesn't really fit anymore. So we can go ahead and select that map item, scroll down and change that VW to, let's say, 1.5 or 1.3. You can play around with it. And you can see if I put this to 1.25 perhaps, or 1.3, this is responsive, right? On tablet. If we move on to mobile landscape, it's still responsive. If I move on to mobile itself, it's still responsive. Obviously, the text is overflowing, so we need to make it smaller, or we just need to hide it on mobile. But that's essentially the premise of how to make this mobile responsive, okay? And there's many ways to do it. I'm just using VW, which scales very well, and I'm using EMs for the specific width and the height, as well as the positioning, which will listen to its parent, which I'm using VW. So that's how I'm making the breakpoint adjustment. That's very, very important. Let's move on to the final part, which is making that pop-up and making that everything CMS linked. Very, very easy. Let's go ahead and do this. So the first thing we need to do is just go ahead and just add a new CMS collection. We'll go ahead and we'll hit plus, and we'll go ahead and just give it a name, Floor Plan Studio. And I'm just going to keep it very, very simple. So I'll just give it a name. Maybe I'll give it like one supporting image, and I'll just give it a description field right here, description. And obviously, because it's a CMS, you can add whatever content you want. I've already made a tutorial in the past in great detail, but that's it. I'm going to go ahead and create collection, and I'm going to go ahead and just give these items a name. So this one would be bedroom, and I'll go ahead and just add a supporting image. So maybe just like this image right here. Go ahead and add a description. I'll go ahead and queue for next site publish, and I'll go ahead and just my other items. So let's just say living room, dragging that image of a living room. Let's just say this one right here. Then I'll give it a description, which I have ChatGPT open right here. So I'll copy that and go back to the tab and paste it in. Go ahead and hit queue for next site publish, and I'll create two of my other rooms, which is kitchen. Let's go ahead and drag an image of a kitchen, which is this one right here, and I'll give it a description right here. Go ahead and hit queue for next site publish. And lastly, I'll create my last item, which is bathroom. And I'll go ahead and just move in that specific image right here. Finally, add that description, and I'll go ahead and hit queue for next site publish. So nothing crazy. One additional thing that I recommend is going into the settings and adding one more field. Usually I call this, develop only, brackets, please do not change. That way your client won't tamper with this. We need to put a unique identifier in this specific text of the CMS item in order for that pop-up to link. That's why I'm using this specific field. I'll explain it once we get to it. We could use the basic info name as well, but just in case if a client goes in and changes the name of that specific room, it would actually break the whole functionality, or it won't link properly. So that's why I've created this new field. And in each of these fields, I'm gonna go ahead and just give it a unique name. So in this case, I'll just call it bath. In the kitchen, I'll give it a unique name of kitchen. Living room, I'll give a name of living. And in bedroom, I'll give it a name of bed. That's it. So once that's it, you can see right here, it says developer only, and it has that unique identifier, which we'll be referencing. Now we just create the pop-up and link everything. It's actually simpler than you think. Let's go ahead and just create a basic pop-up. So let's go ahead and just add a div block. We'll give this a class of pop-up. We'll go ahead and change the width to be 100% and the height to be 100 VH. And just keep in mind, I've already made a tutorial in the past on how to make a basic pop-up. This kind of follows the exact same premise. So once that's done, we'll go and change the position to be fixed. And we'll go ahead and make sure it's full screen right here. And we'll change the Z index so it appears in front. Let's just say 1000. And we'll go ahead and change the background color to be left black. Now with this pop-up, we'll add a div block, and we'll give this a class of pop-up item. And we'll go ahead and maybe give it a max width of, let's say, 32 rams and a width of 100%. And we'll go ahead and just give it some padding, and we'll go ahead and just make it white. And we'll go ahead and select that pop-up and change the flex to be in the middle. And now we can put whatever content we want. So in my case, I just had an image, and I'll go ahead and leave that there. And I'll go ahead and add a heading, maybe heading 2. That will be the name of the place, and then just a paragraph text. That would be the paragraph text, right? And we also need to add one more thing, which is the close pop-up button. So let's go ahead and add that. We'll add a div. We'll give it a class of close pop-up. We'll go ahead and add a text inside, and we'll just say, close pop-up. We'll go ahead and just quickly style it by putting some paddings. And then we'll go ahead and just put a background color of, let's say, this blue, text color of white. We'll center the text, and we'll go ahead and make sure that we change the cursor to be a pointer. And we can go ahead and style this exactly how we want, obviously, because it's Webflow. But I'm going to say that's pretty much it. What I'm going to do now is just select the body and just add a collection list. And in this collection list, I'm going to go ahead and pull in the source of the floor plan studios that I've created. And in this specific collection list, in the collection item, that's where I'm going to add the whole entire pop-up like so, right? Once that's done, we can go ahead and make sure that this closed pop-up links properly. So we'll go ahead and interactions, hit plus, hit tap, hit start new, hit plus, and just go close map pop-up. And all we do here is just select that pop-up, hit plus, hit hide show, select all classes right here, or all elements within the class, and hit none, hit save. And we'll go ahead and just make sure this applies to class as well. So all we've done is just created a pop-up, And then when we hit close pop-up, it just changes from display flex to display. I've already covered this. That's why I'm going a bit fast. So with the pop-up, we can go ahead and pull in those specific CMS items now because it's inside the CMS collection list. So let's go ahead and just pull in our specific image, and perhaps we'll give this a class of CMS Popup image. And in my case, I'll just give it a width of 100%, and I'll give it a ratio so it's not too tall of this one right here, and I'll give it a size of cover. Obviously, you can design whatever you want here. I'm going to go ahead and pull in the heading right here, name, and I'm going to go ahead and pull in the short description as well right here, description. Now I'm going to select the pop-up and just change it from flex to none. So all we're doing is once we hit one of these CMS items, or it's actually not CMS, it's static div blocks, it's then going to find that reference in the CMS and going to change it from none to flex and display that specific one. Super cool stuff, very easy to do. So all we need to do is just add a custom code. And again, I made a tutorial on this in the past if you have any questions. But I'm going to go ahead and just add an embed code in my page, and I'm going to go ahead and just paste in the code. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and leave this code in the description, obviously. But this is a very simple code that is using native Webflow attributes. That's essentially saying once this div block is clicked, find this CMS item and then open that pop-up. Literally, that's it. So we hit save and close. Now what we need to do is just add attributes to each of these map items and also to the CMS. So let's go ahead and start with bathroom. We'll go ahead and select this map point, hit settings on the right hand side. Where it says custom attributes right here, this is what we want to do. We hit plus, we'll give it a name. So the name is data-open-pop-up, right? Then we'll give it a value, and this value needs to link with what we set in the CMS in that extra field. So I know for a fact I called this bath. I'm going to go ahead and copy this name right here, select the kitchen right here, make sure we're in settings, add new custom attributes, give it a name, and the value in this one was kitchen. Now go ahead and select that div of the bedroom, head up to custom attributes, paste in the name, which again is data-open-popup, give it a value of bed, and then I'll lastly go to the last one right here, hit plus, give it the name, and then I'm pretty sure I'll put the value as living, right? This specific value that we're putting, we head back to the CMS, we're adding this specific field that I created called developer only, please do not change. Bath, kitchen, living, bed. That's how it knows what to actually search for. Now that's done, we can go ahead and select our pop-up right here, and we can go ahead and head over to settings, and we can go ahead and add a custom attribute. And the name in this specific case is just data-popup. Once that's done, we can go ahead and pull in the value of that specific CMS unique field that we created. In my case, I called it developer only, please do not touch. The reason I do this again is because if this is for a client, you want to make sure that they don't tamper with this. Otherwise, it's not linking correctly. Believe it or not, that's literally it. We can go ahead and hit publish. And now if we preview the site, if I click into one of these boxes, it should open up the pop-up. As you can see right here, living room, close pop-up, bedroom, right here, close pop-up, kitchen, close pop-up. It's so great to know that things are working. I already showed you how to make it responsive using viewport width and EMs. Apologies if I talked really fast or very angrily. I'll be very honest, I recorded this many, many times. That's why I'm a bit frustrated. But I really hope this answered any questions. This is a really powerful way to do these custom CMS maps. And you can imagine if you have a lot of these items, you can add them in. It takes a while to manually add them in. And in reality, you could also potentially use a specific custom code in order to pull in the width and the height and the absolute position from the CMS as well. But this way, you can style the div block exactly how you want, and it links perfectly to the pop-up. When I first found this, I thought it was mind-blowing, because CMS also has a lot of limitations, like 10 multi-reference fields and then 20 maximum collection lists in a page. So this solved all the problem. And again, as Webflow developers, we can use this for other methods. It doesn't have to be for floor plans. It could be for something else if you ever think of it, like a product demo or something. But very powerful stuff. Again, the example that I showed you is in a larger scale where it has more information, but nevertheless, it's all built in the CMS, and it had about 52 items, 2 levels of floor plans. And because it's done in the collection, the client can easily update it, like I said again, and we can always reference that specific collection somewhere else. Like let's say, for example, in a slider, you can even pull in that pop-up. And the fantastic thing, lastly, is that we're not using some sort of like fin suite, CMS pop-up, which I made a tutorial in the past. This is like just using a static div block with just, 3 lines of custom code. So my name is Derek Su. I really hope you guys found this video very, very helpful. I'd like to apologize again if I talked really fast. I was a bit frustrated because I record this like 10,000 times. And if I went too fast, I have made many tutorials in the past on the basic premise. So for example, if I went too fast with the pop-up, just go ahead and rewind the video, or check out more of my videos right here where I actually explain in much slower and just much more specific, for example, on how to do CMS, for example, how to do a pop-up, for example, how to do a CMS pop-up. So thank you again. Please like this video if you found value. Please leave a comment. It really helps me out. Until then, I'll see you guys in the next one.